have you unearthed any evidence that there was any suggestion anywhere of an inside job? Or is the stuff that you're talking about in relation to CIA and the fascinating details of these two people in particular they were following, is that more cock-up than conspiracy? In other words, was it a gigantic cock-up that after bin Laden had already had one go at the World Trade Center, that there was just not a collective effort by the CIA, by FBI, by other intelligence agencies around the world to stop him succeeding with a second attempt? So is it cock-up, or do you think there is merit to suggestion that some people somewhere must have known more than we've been told?
Well, we know that people did know more than we've been told. I mean, somebody shorted the airlines and a bunch of the banks that were affected. Now, this is not a conspiracy theory. It's not a guess. This is publicly available information. Now,
stop right there. Tucker just said something that most people have never even heard before. Someone made a massive amount of money by betting that American Airlines stock was going to crash before the attacks even happened, and the FBI knows exactly who did it. They identified the person or the institution, but they never told the public. Ask yourself one simple question. If this was just a random coincidence, why would the FBI hide the name? Why would they protect whoever profited from the deaths of 3,000 Americans? This is not a theory. This is a fact sitting in public records that nobody in mainstream media wants to talk about. The more Tucker speaks, the more you realize how deep this goes. Keep watching.
the FBI found out the identity of the person or institution that shorted these events on 9/11 and made a huge amount of money by doing that, but never released that information. So why can't we know who clearly had foreknowledge? I mean, if you're shorting American Airlines a week before 9/11, when no one knows it's coming, I think you should have to explain why you did that. And if you're shorting Barclays and banks that were affected by 9/11, why can't we know who you are? These are public markets, by the way. This is not private equity. This is publicly traded equities. So I wonder about that. So clearly, yes, there was foreknowledge. By the way, there was a team, this is according to the FBI, by the way, this is the FBI saying, there was a team of clearly intel-connected foreigners who were arrested after 9/11, as you well know, videotaping the terror attacks. I'm almost verbatim quoting from the FBI assessment of this. And the FBI determined that they apparently had foreknowledge of the attacks. So why can't we know more about that? Exactly. Shut up. That's bigoted. No, this is my country.
This is the part that should make every single person watching stop and think. Tucker is not making this up. He is reading almost word for word from an official FBI assessment. A team of foreign intelligence-connected individuals was arrested after the attacks. They were filming the towers as they were hit. And the FBI's own conclusion was that they had foreknowledge. They knew it was coming. So here's the question nobody in power wants to answer. If they knew it was coming, and they were there filming it like it was a movie they already knew the ending to, why were they simply released and sent home? Why was none of this ever discussed in the official investigation? And why is the media completely silent about this to this day? Tucker is asking the questions they do not want asked. And that is exactly why you need to keep watching.
Actually, I know people who died on 9/11. Everything was changed because of it. I promptly went off to the Middle East, just like everyone else in our business. I'm sure you did as well. And then we lost our civil liberties at home. We immediately started torturing people and locking up people for years. They are still locked up in Guantanamo Bay with no charges at all. And the rest of us, very much me included, nodded our heads and were like, yeah, they're bad. They're Muslim terrorists. Now, I think a lot of them were bad, and they were Muslim terrorists. On the other hand, if your government is allowed to torture people and lock them up indefinitely without charging them, how long before they do that to you? We don't do that here.
Tucker just hit something that goes far beyond 9/11. Think about what he just said. After the attacks, the government started locking people up with no charges, no trial, no evidence presented in open court. And the rest of us nodded along because we were told they were the bad guys. But Tucker is pointing out something chilling. Once a government decides it can imprison people without charges and torture people without accountability, that power does not go away. It grows. And one day it can be pointed at anyone, even at you. This is not about defending terrorism. This is about defending the basic principles that make a free country free. Tucker is not just talking about 9/11 here. He is talking about what America has slowly become since that day. And Piers Morgan is sitting there quietly because he knows Tucker is right. Do not stop watching. The next part is even more powerful.
You know, it's very common in the UK now, which is an authoritarian country. We don't want that here. And 9/11 dramatically changed our assumptions about what the government is allowed to do. So, and by the way, I should say, the main beneficiary in the United States of those attacks was the CIA, which allowed them to happen. So the CIA budget became, more than doubled. Of course, we're not allowed to know what the CIA budget is, even in government. This is a fact, by the way. If you ask a high-level official at the White House currently, what's the CIA's full budget? They can't tell you. It is a secret that is so closely guarded that even people in charge of administering the government don't know what their budget is. But from what we can tell, it's more than twice what it was before 9/11.
Okay.
Let that sink in for one moment. The single biggest beneficiary of the September 11th attacks was the CIA, the same agency that had the hijackers under surveillance, the same agency that watched them travel around the world, the same agency that followed them all the way to San Diego and then did nothing. After the attacks that they failed to prevent, their budget more than doubled. And here's the part that Tucker reveals that almost nobody knows. Even senior officials inside the White House cannot tell you what the CIA budget actually is. The president's own staff cannot access that number. An agency with a secret budget that nobody can question, nobody can audit, and nobody can hold accountable. And after 9/11, they became bigger and more powerful than ever before. Does that sound like an agency that failed? Or does it sound like an agency that got exactly what it needed? Think about that carefully as you keep watching.
But what you're suggesting with your phraseology about that is that the CIA were part of a kind of inside track knowledge about what may happen, which is obviously an incredibly serious
No, I'm not
charge.
suggesting that. I'm not suggesting that. I'm stating the facts, which are that the CIA was fully aware that many of these hijackers were here, that those visas were issued in a country with which we have very close security service cooperation at a time when John Brennan was running the station there.
But that's different to saying that they knew what was going to happen.
Whereabouts. Well, they actually did know that these people were planning a terror attack because they surveilled a meeting planning it in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, a year before, and then followed the guy as he came to the United States and arrived in San Diego for flight training. So again, I'm not guessing about any of this. These are established facts. There's no person, including then CIA Director George Tenet, who would deny this. They'll say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Okay, fine, whatever, attack my character as you will, but tell me how I'm wrong, and of course I'm not wrong. So I'm not alleging or suggesting anything.
I'm not saying you're right or wrong or anything. All I'm saying is that from everything you're saying, it is a leap. It is a leap. There is a demonstrable difference, I would argue, and by all means push back on this, but I would argue that there's a demonstrable leap between knowledge of bad people moving around and maybe monitoring them and aware they may be up to bad things, but actually having coherent, clear knowledge in advance that they were planning the attack using planes on the World Trade Center.
I understand. You're saying that intent matters, and I would not. Of course, I would not dispute that. Intent does matter. It matters under the law, and it matters morally. Did you mean to do it? Yes, that matters. However, it doesn't matter as much as we pretend that it does. If I pull up to a casino and leave my toddler in the back of the car with the windows up and just kind of forget, and the kid dies, do you say, oh, you didn't mean to kill your own child? No, you'd say through your negligence, your child died.
Yes.
It's murder. Now, it's not a first-degree murder, but it's certainly at least a manslaughter.
It's certainly severe negligence. I agree with that.
We
and
know.
I do, and I agree with you.
That is a kind of murder.
Yeah, listen, I don't think there's any doubt that there was massive negligence when it came to 9/11 happening on the watch of whoever was running the US government at the time, the CIA, the FBI, all of them. No one can credibly say that what happened was not a catastrophic failure of intelligence, because I've always assumed there must be some guys at the Pentagon in a room whose only job it is to think the unthinkable. And it's not that difficult to think that one day somebody may hijack a plane and use it as a weapon, right? It's not that. Yes. When you've got fundamentalists prepared to kill themselves as they kill people, doing it using a plane did not seem to me to be that unthinkable, and yet nobody seemed to have thought that through.
Well, the U.S. government had war-gamed that. Of course. Look, I mean, that was, of course, a possibility in the minds of the people whose job it is to protect the United States from it happening. They war-gamed that. They took bin Laden very seriously. We interviewed members of the bin Laden station, CIA bin Laden station, who I think are patriotic, decent people who really wanted to prevent a terror attack. But there are also elements of the CIA which does not act as a coherent body. It's a vast, sprawling organization. There's not a single person at CIA who understands everything that's happening at CIA at any given time because it's compartmentalized. That's the nature of it. And so there were people at CIA, and I would say John Brennan clearly one of them, who understood that these terrorists, these hijackers, planned to commit violence against Americans in the United States, and they did nothing about it. Now, you can draw your own conclusions about that. In fact, they abetted it. They helped the hijackers get here. Fact.
Tucker just said something that you need to hear again. The CIA did not just fail to stop the hijackers. According to Tucker, they actually helped them get into the country, and he is calling this a fact. Not an opinion, not a theory, a fact. The meeting in Kuala Lumpur, where the attack was being planned, was under CIA surveillance a full year before it happened. They then followed the man directly to San Diego, where he was training to fly, and yet nobody stopped him. Nobody picked up the phone to warn the FBI. Nobody warned the American public. 3,000 people died. And the people who had all of this information not only faced zero consequences, but came out of it more powerful and more funded than they had ever been before in history. Tucker Carlson is not afraid to say this out loud. And that is exactly why this conversation is so important. Stay with us because the final part of what Tucker says next is the most important thing in this entire video.
And so you can argue about why, but the truth is it's incumbent on them to tell us why. We had a fake investigation. George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, Condoleezza Rice, Philip Zelikow participated in hiding the truth from the public. Again, I voted for them. It's not a partisan point. That is a fact. We know it now. And why isn't there a 9/11, an actual 9/11 commission dedicated to finding out what happened? And the truth is, not only is there not, but even right now, as we speak, the CIA is effectively refusing to release information that they have from 24 years ago. And why? What is the answer? I don't know, but they should be forced at gunpoint to divulge this.
What you just watched is not entertainment. This is one of the most honest conversations about September 11th that has ever been allowed on mainstream television. Tucker Carlson sat across from one of the most experienced journalists in the world and presented facts, not feelings, not theories. Facts from FBI documents and public records that the government has spent 24 years trying to keep you from thinking about. The CIA knew the investigation was fake. The budget was hidden, and the people who should have been asked the hardest questions walked away richer and more powerful than ever. Piers Morgan came into this conversation ready to push back, and by the end, he agreed that what happened was at minimum a catastrophic and unforgivable failure. So here's my question for you. After watching Tucker lay out all of these facts one by one, do you still believe that the official story told to us about September 11th is the complete truth? Or do you think the American people deserve a real investigation with real transparency and real answers even 24 years later? Write your answer in the comments right now. I want to know what you think. And if this video opened your eyes even a little bit, please like it so that more people can see the facts that Tucker Carlson had the courage to say out loud. And subscribe to this channel because we are going to keep bringing you the conversations and the truths that the mainstream media is too afraid to show you.